Perfect.
All right, everybody, what's going on? And welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk. This is the show we cover the SWAC inside and out. I'm your tour guide around the SWAC. C. Wells coming at you. And today we're going to continue our journey through my all-time quarterbacks at each school list. Take a lot of work to do some of these. Some of these are easier to put together than others. Still working on quite a few of them, but I'm going to drop my FAMU one today. A lot just for the sake of discussion and transparency. I'm not going back into the 70s, man. I'm trying to stop it in like the 80s and early 90s, because that's pretty much the period of time that I was really watching football. And so I wanted to kind of put these lists together based more on guys that I've seen. Some of these teams, like there was a period of time where Southern didn't play FAMU that often, so I didn't really get to see a lot of these guys play, but some of these guys I had a chance to see play in person. And so I'm gonna put together the list. Of course, your list may vary in the order. I doubt it's gonna vary too much with the names, but it may vary with some of the order. But I'll share my thoughts on the guys who I did have a chance to see play, and other than that, it just be some general blurbs on them and what they did. So with that being said, man, y'all hit the socials. I have a new article on bustingbrackets.com. You can check the link on my Twitter page, which is Swag Talk 76. Also, you get the Instagram Swag Talk or Facebook is Swag Talk. If you have any suggestions on who should make the all-time list of modern time for your team, you can hit any of those socials, especially the Twitter, or you can hit me on my email at swagtalk76@gmail.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We are rapidly approaching 1,200 subs, so thank y'all for that. Like the video, share, and feel free to comment your thoughts on the list and who should have been on there, who may be too high, who may be too low, whatever. So let's go ahead and not waste any time, man. We're going to jump into this. I actually have 8 guys, so we're gonna do some honorable mentions. And the first honorable mention we'll start off is the most recent guy, and that's Jeremy Musa. Now, I know a lot of people may not be a fan of Musa. They may not like, the numbers, well, they may not like, the way he played all the time, or, he wasn't necessarily, the greatest quarterback, but he had something under his belt that a lot of guys don't have. And it's not all him. I'm not saying he did everything himself, but he helped lead the Rattlers to their first SWAC championship and their first Celebration Bowl berth and victory. He helped lead the Rattlers to a 12-1 season, 8-0 in conference. Last season they were 9-2, 7-1 in conference. So when it comes to winning, a lot of that was great defense and great guys around him. But quarterback still gets that attention from a lot of people. So you can't hold that against him. For being the guy to lead the team. He was able to play pretty steady ball. I'm not gonna really sit here and nitpick his flaws and everything, but I know a lot of people were upset with his accuracy, but he finished his career at FAMU with 5,600 yards and 43 touchdowns. Like I said, he helped the Rattlers win a SWAC championship and win the Celebration Bowl. So that's a very important guy in the history of this program moving forward. He may not have the stats or the legend of some of the guys in front of him, but he's a guy who was able to take care of business and win games. Like I said, this one may be a bit decisive because I know how some people feel about him, but he did play his part, and you can't hold that against him. And that's why I put him on the honorable mention instead of in the actual list, because I don't really think he's as great as those guys were. So I'm not gonna disrespect any other player by putting him there due to recency bias. Um, a little bit more a little bit more consistency, and he probably could have been there. So that's pretty much where he stands. Um, our next quarterback on our honorable mention would be Ben Doherty. He played at FAMU from '02 to '04. He was the first white quarterback to start at FAMU, so that's something that you really that's a history thing. That's something that you can really take into account. He probably would have been number 5, but my number 5 is a guy that I liked a lot at FAMU, so I swapped him out. He left his mark at FAMU by throwing for over 5,100 yards, almost 5,200 yards, and 32 touchdowns in his 2 years. He set a Florida Classic record with 6 touchdowns in a game, and he was the last quarterback that ran the Gulf Coast offense under Billy Joe. So he was 9-14 as a starter. He was in that time period where FAMU was going through the transition, attempting to move up. So, the records weren't like they were before. And that team, that '04 team got shafted, by NCAA and things like that. So, not necessarily the greatest mark in terms of wins and losses, but there's one of those situations where there's a lot of caveats that can be put on the reason why those numbers were as they were. I mean, the team went from 7-4 and 7-5 in '01 and '02 to 6-6 in '03, and then 3-8 in '04 because the NCAA, kind of put the kibosh on that move, and they immediately went back to 6-5 and 7-4 the next 2 years. So they were poised to make a nice move, but you can't really hold a lot of that against the guys. They were put in a situation that they did not they did not sign up for. So they took a lot of beatings, but they were able to make some things happen in the meantime. Our last honorable mention player would be Curtis Pulley. He transferred from Kentucky. He played at FAMU in '08 and '09. He was Joe Taylor's. He was a quarterback under Joe Taylor, and he really allowed that offense to flourish. He led FAMU to a 9-3 record in '08 and an 8-3 record in '09. He finished with 3,200 yards and 29 touchdowns. So again, another guy who had pretty solid stats and pretty solid team record, but that was kind of in that in between time. So he doesn't really get the attention that he probably should have gotten. And one thing that you can look at a lot of these quarterbacks on the list, and it's not a negative at all. I mean, I believe in guys who who can come in and play, but there were a few very crucial transfers to come into this program and turn things around. And you can always respect the guy for that. There's nothing wrong with transferring in, and you can work transfers. Then I never have a problem with that. And that takes us to our top 5. And my number 5 again may not be your number 5, but my number 5 is Ryan Stanley, and this was a guy who had a great 2-year run under Willie Simmons. He played before Willie Simmons got there. He got there in 2016, but he was the guy from 18 and 19 when Willie Simmons was really kind of getting his footing. He was new there, and he had a quarterback who could help guide that offense. They actually finished 9-3. They finished 9-2 and 6-5. So that was their first winning record. That 6-5 record was their first winning record since 2011. So that's an important mark. Like I said, he was a guy who came in and had a tremendous 2019 season. He really ate really well in 2019. That offense was tremendous. Had a young Xavier Smith on that offense, and they barely missed out on making the Celebration Bowl because they couldn't go, but they were right there in the mix. he finished his career at FAMU with a record of 22-22. Had, like I said, he helped the team win 9 games in 2019, 6 in 2018. He was the 2019 MEAC Conference Player of the Year. He was first team All Conference that year. He was third team All MEAC in 2018. Like I say, a chip probably would put him above, put him even higher. But he finished with 8,200 yards and 64 touchdowns. That's tremendous numbers. Those are numbers that really nobody else on this list has, honestly. So if you wanted to put him higher, I would not argue that, because his numbers are higher than anybody else on this list. Like I say, he doesn't have the postseason success or the postseason appearances or the championship under his belt that probably could boost him over a few other guys. So that's why I put him at 5. I mean, you could put him anywhere on this list, and I wouldn't argue. I mean, maybe some people would, but I wouldn't. My number 4 guy is Oatman Sampson. He played at FAMU in 96 and 97. He was the first true Gulf Coast quarterback under Billy Joe. If you remember at that time, when Billy Joe first got to FAMU, didn't really run that wide open Gulf Coast offense. About midseason in 95, they switched over and really got it going. And then, in 96, it was off to the races. Like I said, he set out the 95 season, but then in 96 he took over. He left FAMU with 6,100 yards and 46 touchdowns. He actually helped the Rattlers win the homecoming game in that span, 83-12. So when you play for a team that that's capable of putting up 80 plus points on somebody, that's always there's always something that you can stand out. You can look out for. They beat Morgan State 83-12 in 1996. They went to the playoffs that year and lost to Troy. They also went to the playoffs in 97 and lost to Georgia Southern. So he led them to 2 playoff berths. Really great career there. Wasn't that long time, but he was there for a good time. Led the Rattlers to 2 9-3 records. So they really ran off some things, went to the playoffs, and were very successful in his time there in the MEAC and in the non-conference. Our number 3 guy is Juwan Sider. He played at FAMU in 99. He was a guy. He was almost that bridge guy. Like he was kind of he there was a nice little span of quarterbacks that ran there. You had Sampson, Bonner, who's coming up later in the list, Sider, and Quinn Gray. Those 4 guys, those are kind of like the 4 horsemen in modern FAMU football, as far as I'm concerned. But Sider played in 99. He was a West Virginia transfer. He led FAMU to the FCS semifinals, earned MEAC Player of the Year. In his one season there, he threw for 3,400 yards and 41 touchdowns, ran for 1,000 yards. Just had, like I said, a really solid player. Was able to, like I said, help FAMU make the playoffs and reach the semifinals. That 99 team was one of the best teams I've seen. I remember them running roughshod over Southern in Tallahassee. 65-18. That game was not even as close as the score. They had their way with people that year. They finished 10-4, so they didn't even have a tremendous record, but that Gulf Coast offense really put up points. A&T and Grambling kind of slowed them down. Oh no, that's wrong season. Sorry. They had losses to Miami, Tennessee State, and A&T. Before they lost to Youngstown State in the playoffs. They would win against App State and Troy in the playoffs and make the semifinals. So that was a really great season, and they had a quarterback who really could get the job done with his legs and his arm, and that offense was just top-notch. Really tough team to beat, and really successful program. Our number Our number 2 guy is Pat Bonner. He was at FAMU in '98. He transferred from Temple. Um, he led the Rattlers to the '98 MEAC title, and he was took them to the quarterfinal round of the FCS playoffs. He finished his career at FAMU with 4,128 yards, passing 43 touchdowns. They called him the Mad Bomber. That offense was really, you know, really loaded. You know, you got guys that could catch the ball and run. You know, the rack boys really, really put in work with the receiving. It was tough to defend those guys, man. Um, that offense was just, that, like I said, that span of teams in that time period was really tough. And I watched them put up numbers against Southern almost every year. 33-3 in '97. I think there was like a 50-48 game or something like that in '98. Then of course 65-18. Though they had their way with Southern and a lot of other teams, but that's my viewpoint. You really had guys who can make some things happen. Um, Nunnally and Lamb and guys like that, they just were really amazing offensively. And Bonner, in a short time, he was explosive, and he worked his way up the ladder. Quinn Gray is our number 1 guy. He was at FAMU from '98 to '01. All those guys were on the same team, and that's crazy when you look at it. Gray had, he's probably the best quarterback to come out of the Billy Joe era. When you look at his numbers, he had over 7,300 yards passing, 57 touchdowns. He was the all-time leading passer at that point. He was passed by Ryan Stanley. He never lost the Florida Classic, which never hurts. If you're a team that has a rivalry game, your quarterback doesn't lose it. That's something that you can always look. That can endear you to a group of people, and it almost better than any record can. But he had a really great career. Like I said, he left FAMU as the all-time leading passer. His numbers were eclipsed by Ryan Stanley, but still, to be the guy who kind of was behind other guys, and then when he got his chance, just really lit it up. It is tremendous. His season, the Rattlers, they were a 9-3 team in 2000 and 7-4 in 2001. Went to the playoffs both times. So as you can see, that was a run of playoff burst for the Rattlers from like '96 to 2001, and all those quarterbacks are on this list. And that's a tremendous run that I don't think many schools have. I mean, everybody has great quarterbacks, but you would be hard pressed to find a lot of schools that can have a run like that back to back to back to back. And all those guys, they all were in the same offense, and they just really ate. And that's why the top 4 guys on this list are guys who played in that Gulf Coast offense, and for good reason. Like I said, they went on a hell of a run in the playoffs, and won championships and the whole 9. So with that being said, man, this one was fun to look at, man. I mean, this brought back some memories of some of these guys. Some bad memories for me, but it's still great to recognize those guys. And we'll be back with another one of these lists. I think we'll do Jackson State. That one to drop tomorrow, so y'all keep it locked there. The other ones, it's still a little bit nip and tuck. Shout out to my boy DJ for helping put together that Pine Bluff list. I'm almost finished with that one. Got a Valley list that's pretty much complete. Bethune-Cookman list is just about complete. So I'm going to be rolling out a few more of these in the next few days, but these are a lot of fun for me. I like to look back and see some of these guys that I remember from growing up or, in my younger days. And just just respect the greatness and give them their flowers, while most of these guys are here. So with that being said, man, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC signing out, and I will catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.